Yeah, I'll always be a metalhead. Nothing can take that away from me.
Right.
I mean, not jail, not people, not religion, not anything. I'll always be a metalhead. Metalhead leaves you all right.
You're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Welcome back, metalheads, to another episode of the Great Metal Debate Podcast. It's Xander yet again with another album review. Today, we'll be taking a look at the newest album from the band Evil Incarnate, titled Lucifers Crown. Some of you might remember last summer when I did my first ever drunk metal interview with Michael Eisenhower, the guitarist from this band, and the band Luna and Sanguinum. Michael is also the lead guitarist and lead vocalist for this band. Not to pick favorites, but I think Evil Incarnate is the heavier band. Now, apparently this album has been available on Bandcamp since May 23rd, but Michael personally messaged me, and he let me know that it had just dropped at the end of June. Now we are halfway through July, and I'm just now getting around to reviewing this album. Better late than never, am I right? Before we start, I would like to tell a little joke. Every time I think of the name of this band, I am reminded of the spoof comedy flick called Disaster Movie. There was a scene in that film where they were making fun of Alvin and the Chipmunks by having obvious puppet chipmunks get rabies and then break out into a death metal song. The lyrics for the song were just them shouting the words, Evil Incarnate, a couple of times. This band is still very underground despite being around since 1997 and having 3 previous full-length studio albums in their discography. Now they are back with a vengeance, unleashing their 4th crushing new death metal record. Let's dive right into the hellish release and see what's in store for both old fans and new listeners alike. First up is the intro track that basically all metal albums must have by law. Prophetic March of the Devil's Legion is the title of the typical ominous sounds along with actual feet of soldiers marching before we are treated to the church organ. What you are hearing right now is the first official song titled Not My Christ. The church music has Michael's demonic chanting layered over top of it. A drum beat creeps its way in, but the evil vocals continue. It's not a satanic band without mentioning the number of the beast. Let's put it this way, if there's no 666 in my evil music, then it's not evil enough. This is followed up with a different kind of chant, where we hear the words, I masturbate, which is a little funny until you realize how blasphemous it is. If I'm going to give any constructive criticism, I will say that the song drags for a little bit longer than needed. I don't see any reason why this song has to be almost 8 minutes long, especially since it seems to be a slight bit repetition in the lyrics. Undisputed Law brings a little bit more satisfaction to my ears, as the drums are certainly faster, and the guitar riff has a little bit more groove to it. While we're on the subject of drums, let's talk about Pat Maxwell's usage of cymbals. The sound mixing really makes those crash and hi-hat cymbals stand out without overpowering the punchy kick drums. Michael's gurgles and snarls, still being very audible, are also a very nice touch. The opening riff of the next track, Great Dragon of Thunder, has a very incantation vibe to it, and it reminds me heavily of the old school Onward to Golgotha era of death metal, where it has a slight hint of doom. As for the rest of the song, it's a slow Morbid Angel-esque grinding rhythm. The vocals continue over the guitar shredding throughout the track. Next we get the album title track, Lucifer's Crown, which has some great bass lines in the beginning played by Rick Garza. This song has more of those dragging vocals that are very gravelly. Crosses in Disgrace is yet another slow, doomy style of death metal with a head-bobbing inducing beat. Penetrating Infest is another chaos-stricken track with its fast popping snare drums. The carnage proceeds with Black Box of Fear and its foreboding sense of dread. The Corpseborn is another unrelenting track full of pummeling percussion and unclean, grimy guitar chugs. Everything I have described so far about this music can be said for the rest of the album. All the songs are good and sound diabolical, which is exactly what you should come to expect from a band like Evil Incarnate. I'm going to be fair and give this album a nice little 8 out of 10 rating. There are so many death metal albums that have come out in the year 2023 already, so it's difficult for me to choose the ones that I like the most. If I were to compare this band's greatness, I would put them alongside the new Creeping Death album and the newest Conjureth album. It's too early for me to lump them in with the Incantation category, but I certainly feel like it has potential to be a runner-up. As always, be sure to show your support for the underground, and you can purchase the music on Bandcamp.